Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12, verse of Emperor Parikshit. Text 1. Sonaka Uvacha Aswathamno Parispristena Brahma Sharino Sutejasa Uttaraya Hatu Garva Ishena Judita Punaha.
The sage, text 1. The sage Shaunaka said, the womb of Uttara, mother of Maharaj Parikshit, was spoiled by the dreadful and invincible Brahmastra weapon released by Ashwatthama. But Maharaj Parikshit was saved by the Supreme Lord.
Text 2. Tasya Janma Mahabuddhehe Karmani cha Mahatmanaha Nidhanam cha Yathevasi Sapritya Gatavan Yathaha.
How was the great Emperor Parikshit, who was a highly intelligent and great devotee, born in that womb? How did his death take place? And what did he achieve after his death?
Text 3. Gadidam Shrutam Ichhamo Gaditum Yadi Manyase Bruhi Nasraddha Dhananam Yashya Jnanam Adakshukaha.
We all respectfully want to hear about him, Maharaj Parikshit, to whom Sukadev Goswami imparted transcendental knowledge. Please speak on this matter.
Text 4. Sutta Uvacha Api Paladharma Raja Pitri Vadrajanyam Prajaha Nishpriha Sarva Kamebhyaha Krishna Padanu Sevaya.
Sri Sutta Goswami said, Emperor Yudhishthir administered generously to everyone during his reign. He was exactly like his father. He had no personal ambition and was freed from all sorts of sense gratification because of his continuous service onto the lotus feet of the Lord Sri Krishna.
Text 5. Sampada Kritavo Loka Mahishi Bhataro Mahi Jambu Dvipa Dipatyam Cha Yasas Chatri Divam Gatuham.
News even reached the celestial planets about Maharaj Yudhishthira's worldly possessions, the sacrifices by which he could attain a better destination, his queen, his stalwart brothers, his extensive land, his sovereignty over the planet Earth, his fame, etc.
Text 6. Kim te kamaha suraspraha mukunda manasu dvijaha adhijahurmudam rajaha shruti dhitasya gate tare.
O Brahmanas, the opulence of the king was so enchanting that the denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service.
Text 7. Matur garva gato viraha sattada bhrigu nandana dadarsa purusham kanchid dhyayamano asat
O son of Bhrigu, Shaunaka, when the child Parikshit, the great fighter, was in the womb of his mother Uttara and was suffering from the burning heat of the Brahma Astra thrown by Ashwatthama, he could observe the Supreme Lord coming to him.
Text 8. Angushta matram amalam spura purata maulinam apivya darshanam shyamam dadi vasasam achyutam.
He, the Lord, was only thumb high, but he was all transcendental. He had a very beautiful, blackish, infallible body, and he wore a dress of lightning, yellow, and a helmet of blazing gold. Thus he was seen by the child.
Text 9. Srimat Dirga Chaturbahum सप्तकाञ्चनकुण्डलं सतजाक्षं गदापाणिम् आत्मनः सर्वतो दिशाम्.
The Lord was enriched with 4 hands, earrings of molten gold, and eyes blood red with fury. As he loitered about, his club constantly encircled him like a shooting star.
Mataji, I think I read that again because I didn't read the two last line. Sorry. Text
Yes,
9. Sorry. श्रीमद्दीर्घचतुर्बाहुं सप्तकाञ्चनकुण्डलं सप्तजजाक्षं गदापाणिम् आत्मनः सर्वतो दिशां परिभ्रमन्तम् उल्काभां ब्रह्मयन्तं गदामुः. Sorry.
no, that's fine. The Lord was thus engaged in vanquishing. Oh, Mataji, you have to read text 10, or should I read the 9? Okay.
No, you read the translation, please.
Okay. Text number 10. The Lord was thus
No.
uh,
I
text
haven't done the
yeah,
9, the translation of 9, please.
yeah. The Lord was enriched. The Lord was enriched with 4 hands, earrings of molten gold, and eyes blood red with fury. As he loitered about, his club constantly encircled him like a shooting star.
Text 10. Astra स्वगदाया निहारम् इव गोपतिः विद्धामन्तं समीकर्षे पर्यैक्षत कैति आसो.
The Lord was thus engaged in vanquishing the radiation of the Brahmastra. Just as the sun evaporates a drop of dew, he was observed by the child who thought about who he was.
Text 11. विधूयतद् अमेयात्मा भगवान् धर्मागुद्विभुः विशतो दशमासस्य तैत्रैवान्तार्दहरिः.
While thus being observed by the child, the Supreme Lord of Godhead, the Supersoul of everyone, and the protector of the righteous, who stretches in all directions and who is unlimited by time and space, disappeared at once.
Text 12. ततः सर्वगुणोधर्के सानुकूलगृहोदये यज्ञेवं स दरः पाण्डोर् भूयः पाण्डुरिवाजसा.
Thereupon, when all good signs of the zodiac gradually evolved, the heir apparent of Pandu, who would be exactly like him in the prowess, took birth.
Text 13. तस्य कृतमना राजा विप्रैरिथोम्या कृपातिभिः चातकं कारण्यम् आस वाचैति वाचमङ्गलम्.
King Yudhishthir, who was very satisfied with the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, had the purificatory process of the birth performed. Learned Brahmanas, headed by Dhaumya and Kripa, recited auspicious hymns.
Text 14. हिरण्यं गां महिं ग्रामं हस्ति अस्वान् नृपतिर्वरान् प्रजात्वनं च विप्रभूयः प्रजातीर्थे सतीर्थवित्.
Upon the birth of a son, the king, who knew how, where, and when charity should be given, gave gold, land, villages, elephants, horses, and the good food grains to the Brahmanas.
16. तं ऊचुर् ब्रह्मणास्तु स्वराजनं प्रश्रयन्वितं ईशा यस्मिन् प्रजातन्तं पुरुणां पौरवर्षभाः.
The learned Brahmanas, who were very satisfied with the charities of the king, addressed him as the chief amongst the Purus and informed him that his son was certainly in the line of descent from the Purus.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
forgive our mistakes. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yes, please forgive our mistakes. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Matajis, for the lovely recitations. Hare Krishna. Jyoti Mataji, has Prabhuji joined us yet?
Hare Krishna Mataji. He said he will join by 8 o'clock.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have the opening prayers. Would Shailash Prabhuji would you like to say the opening prayers while waiting for Divyanam Prabhu to join us, please?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare
Yes, let me.
Krishna. Sorry to for this last minute notice.
No problem. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Daivim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Srinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantasto hi avadrani vidunoti suratsatam Nashtaye prayashve avadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhakatir bhavati naishtikihi Mukham karoti vachalam pangum jayet girim Yat kripatam aham vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Yat kripatam aham vande Paramanandam Madhavam Om Jnana Tirimandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gurue Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for that beautiful Mangala Charan. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaurav Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are covering the first canto, 12th chapter, verse 4 to 6. I would like to read the purports. I'm not sure how the other devotees do, but I just feel, Prabhupada's purports are so illuminating and we can just kind of elaborate on them. So maybe I'd like to invite the devotees today who could read maybe 4 or 5 lines. Anybody can go who would love to read Prabhupada books can put your hands up or just speak up and start reading. I'll read the verse and the translation, and then devotees can come forward and read the purport. Sri Suta Uvacha Api Paladharma Raja Pitravadranjaya Praja Nihishripaha Sarva Kamebhya Krishna Padanusavaya. Translation. Sri Suta Goswami said, Emperor Yudhishthira administered generously to everyone during his regime. He was exactly like his father. He had no personal ambition and was freed from all sorts of sense gratification because of his continuous service onto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Anyone?
Hare Krishna. Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yeah, go ahead, Mataji. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Prabhuji, I put my hand up also. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
straight after
Yeah.
Kusum Mataji, you can go ahead in the link.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
As mentioned in our introduction, there is a need for the science of Krishna in human society for all the suffering humanity of the world. And we simply request the leading personalities of all nations to take the science of Krishna for their own good, for the good of society, and for the good of all people of the world. So it is confirmed herein by the example of Maharaj Yudhishthir, the personality of goodness. In India, the people hanker after Ram Rajya because the personality of Godhead was the ideal king, and all other kings or emperors in India controlled the destiny of the world for the prosperity of every living being who took birth on the earth. Herein, the word praja is significant. The etymological import of the word is that which is born. On the earth, there are many species of life, from the aquatics up to the perfect human beings, and all are known as prajas. Lord Brahma, the creator of this particular universe, is known as the Prajapati because he's the grandfather of all who have taken birth. Thus, praja is used in a broader sense than it is now used.
Thank you, Mataji. Indulekha Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. The king represents all living beings, the aquatics, plants, trees, reptiles, birds, animals, and men. Every one of them is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord in Bhagavad Gita 14.4. And the king, being the representative of the Supreme Lord, is duty-bound to give proper protection to every one of them. This is not the case with the presidents and dictators of this demoralized system of administration, where the lower animals are given no protection, while the higher animals are given so-called protection. But this is a great science, which can be learned only by one who knows the science of Krishna. By knowing the science of Krishna, one can become the most perfect man in the world. And unless one has knowledge of the science, all qualifications and doctorate diplomas acquired by academic education are spoiled and useless. Maharaj Yudhishthira knew the science of Krishna very well, for it is stated here that by continuous cultivation of the science or by continuous devotional service to Lord Krishna, he acquired the qualification of administering the state. The father is sometimes seemingly cruel to the son, but that does not mean that the father has lost the qualification to be a father. A father is always a father because he always has the good of the son at heart. The father wants every one of his sons to become a better man than himself. Therefore, a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was a personality of goodness, wanted everyone under his administration, especially human beings who have better developed consciousness, to become devotees of Lord Krishna, so that everyone can become free from the trifles of material existence.
Thank you,
His
Mataji.
motto, Hare Krishna.
So much. Anybody else?
I can read, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Chandrasekhar Prabhu, please go ahead.
So,
His motto of administration from here.
oh yeah, okay. His mode of administration was all good for the citizens. For his personified goodness, he knew perfectly well what is actually good for them. He conducted the administration on that principle and not on the Rakshasi demonic principle of sense gratification. As an ideal king, he had no personal ambition, and there was no place for sense gratification because all his senses at all times were engaged in the loving service of the Supreme Lord, which includes the partial service to the living beings who form parts and parcels of the complete whole. Those who are busy rendering service to the parts and parcels, living aside the whole, only spoil time and energy, as does one when watering the leaves of a tree without watering the root. If water is put on the root, is poured on the root, the leaves are enlivened perfectly and automatically. But if water is poured on the leaves only, the whole energy is spoiled. Maharaj Yudhishthira, therefore, was constantly engaged in the service of the Lord, and thus the parts and parts of the Lord, living beings, under his careful administration, were perfectly attended with all comforts in this life and all progress in the next. That is the perfect way, the perfect management of state administration. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much. So just to give a bit of a context of this verse, we are in the chapter 12 of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, which is entitled Birth of Emperor Parikshit. And in this particular chapter, we see towards the end of the 11th chapter, the transcendental character of the Supreme Lord was glorified. And in particularly, the last word ended that the simple and the delicate queens of the Lord. Smita Mataji, if you could kindly mute yourself. Thank you. So in the last chapter, the queens were glorified in how they were glorifying Krishna. And now there is a slight twist in the chapter because Suta Goswami is speaking. And what is happening here is you see, as Suta Goswami is speaking, he's been really appreciated um, for what he's saying. And now Sonaka Rishi is actually posing a question and he wants to know, he becomes inquisitive to find out about Parikshit Maharaj. So this is a very important point here, that when the qualification of the speaker, the qualification or the qualities of what is being spoken, and also the qualification or the qualities of the receiver are of a paramount importance when Srimad Bhagavatam is concerned. So because everybody gets completely benefited, all these three parties. So here Sonaka Rishi is inquiring about Parikshit Maharaj. He wants to know, and it's not just him, all those 18,000 sages who are right behind him assembled there, they are curious. And because Sonaka Rishi is one of the most advanced in those sages, he could see that what is going on in the minds of all the Vaishnavas behind him, and in that inquisitiveness, he now wants to know. And why would not, why he should not? Because the sublime characteristics of Parikshit Maharaj, who is a pure devotee of the Lord, are worthy of glorification and worthy of hearing actually. So right at the outset of this chapter, what is happening? We are hearing from Sonaka Rishi, who's saying, we want to hear about the birth, about the activities, about the death, and the destination of Parikshit Maharaj, who was saved in the womb of Uttara. So here you see, this is the way of posing questions, right? When we pose a question to our spiritual master, to the saints, or when we are going into the morning class, in the recent mentorship group we read that it's very important that the question is pertinent to the context in which the class is given as far as possible. Now, of course, if there are no more questions or there is no further discussion, then you may put your hand up and humbly ask the speaker that, dear sir, would you mind if I asked a question which is slightly off the topic? And if the speaker gives you the permission, then you are not transgressing the etiquette. Then you can ask and pose the question. But try not to ask irrelevant questions which are not related to the topic. So here the topic is very pertinent. It's very, very important. Bhagavatam is being spoken. The glories of Lord Krishna are being talked about. Now Parikshit Maharaj is being brought into the mix. And now they want to know about his birth, about his activities, about his death, and also how he is relating. One who was saved in the Uttara by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Look at the and and the, so apart from the points I mentioned, the other important point in the way the question is being posed here, if you think about it for a moment, is that he he is inspiring and encouraging the speaker by giving the contextual understanding that we want to know about that same Parikshit Maharaj who was blessed right in the womb of the Uttara by being saved by personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that kind of question then gave a joy to Sutta Goswami to be able to then narrate and speak about Parikshit Maharaj. Then in the second verse, we hear the qualities and the opulence and how the detachment of the Yudhishthir Maharaj. Yudhishthir Maharaj now is coming into the mix before we talk about Parikshit Maharaj, you know. And then here in this particular section from text to 4 to 6 is the glorification of Yudhishthir Maharaj is given. And why is Yudhishthir Maharaj is being brought into this context? Can somebody tell me? Let's see. Let's see how much attention you all have been paying in the last few verses. How come? Okay, this is Parikshit Maharaj. How does Yudhishthir Maharaj come into play here now?
Hare Krishna,
Yes,
because Parikshit Maharaj is the grandson of Yudhishthir Maharaj, and he will imbibe the qualities of the Pandavas. That's why, and Yudhishthir Maharaj is the righteous one. So they are just kind of tally both together. Hare
Fantastic.
Krishna.
Very good. Thank you, Mataji. So I'd like to take you back to the verse. We will do verse at a time. I know we are short of time, but we can spend 5 minutes on each verse, hopefully, Krishna willing. So let's just spend just 5 minutes on this verse here. What do we see here? Of course, Sutta Goswami is speaking, and then the qualities of Yudhishthira Maharaj are glorified here. The first quality is being glorified that he was very generous. He had a lot of generosity and he administrated in the spirit of giving. The duty of a king is to give, alongside receiving the taxes, he's supposed to give it back in some form or other to back to his praja or the audience who he's taking care of, or the citizens in his kingdom. And so that is being glorified here. And then the second was he was like a father. Pitravad, where is the word Pitravad is used? He was like a fatherly figure to all the people in the kingdom, and he had that kind of affection. So you see, kings like Yudhishthir Maharaj, who's Yudhishthir Maharaj is a righteous king. He is known for keeping the same rule for his own brothers, for his own family members, what he would keep it for all the other citizens in the kingdom. That's the kind of king was. So in the previous time, we know, like Dashrath Maharaj, all these various kings, once they take a vow, once they take a pledge, even if it is their own family member who have to go through the distress, they will never take the word back. That is why the king like Yudhishthira is called Pitravad. He had that fatherly affection. He had that fatherly manship towards his citizens who he was ruling. Then the another word which comes is that he was he was pleased. The citizens were very, very pleased. So the word used here is Ranjayan Praja. He was very, very liked. He was very, very someone who was the citizens were extremely fond of him, actually. So that's another quality is being spoken about Parikshit Maharaj. And then what is the other one? That he was free from the persons who desire sense gratification. Here, the word Nishpraha. So you see the word Nishpraha here, without personal ambition or without any sense of enjoying for oneself, only for the sake of living for pure devotional service, or for taking care of those who are under his shelter in that spirit of performing devotional service. So that was the next quality which has been explained here. Nishparha sarva kamebhya. So only for the pleasing the senses of the Lord. And due to this, he was continuously serving the lotus feet of Krishna. He became Krishna Padanusevaya. In this attitude, he was serving Lord Krishna. So these are some qualities which are being glorified in this particular verse of Bhagavatam. I just want to take you through two important points here. Here, Prabhupada is explaining that how the praja is used in a broader sense. Every one of them is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So the same fatherly Okay, I got a bit scared for a moment. So what's been spoken here is that earlier I mentioned that spirit of fatherly spirit comes. Why? Because Prabhupada in these purports gives the significance of how Lord Brahma is the actual grandfather who's taking care of the entire kingdom under the protection of Krishna. Here Yudhishthir Maharaj is taking care of his citizen. But how? He knows that these are all part and parcel. Mame vamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. He knows that every living entity who's been entrusted in my kingdom is done by the arrangement of the Lord, and I'm supposed to look after them. I'm supposed to take care of them. And then Prabhupada gives a nice comparison. He says that, but this is, and he explained that how this is a great science, but he then talks about the academic education, how people are spoiled because of so-called science and education and the doctorate diplomas which are acquired by academic education. But Maharaj Yudhishthira knew this science of Krishna consciousness, which is the most important science. Now one may ask or argue, why do I need to study or do anything else? Well, we do need to study because knowing Krishna means knowing Krishna, who's the spiritual energy. Knowing the material world is important because then we can understand how material world is different to spiritual world and what is the relationship between the two. As Chaitanya Charan Prabhu very nicely explains, that we as the devotees, we are we are not averse, we are not inimical towards the material energy, but rather we should develop attachment towards Krishna. We should develop our attraction towards the Lord. We should get attracted by the Lord. But as devotees, we do not hate the material energy because we understand that this material energy is Devi hi Esha Gunamai Mama Maya Durataya. So it is acting under the superintendence of Krishna. So in that sense, even this energy of the Lord is although material seeming, but it's still of significance. So we still pay respect, but we are always afraid. We should be afraid of the material energy. That's what Prabhupada guided. He said we should develop our attachment towards Krishna and be afraid of material energy. We can't say, oh, Maya cannot do anything. Maya is very, 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 very strong, actually. So we should always be conscious of this fact, actually. And then finally, here it's mentioned that as an ideal king, he had no personal ambition and there was no place for sense gratification because all of his time were engaged in loving service of the Supreme Lord, which includes the partial service to the living beings who form the part and parcels of the complete whole. You see, this is how actually this is the vision of a Mahabhagavat. Yudhishthir Maharaj was a Mahabhagavat. He saw that there is a super soul situated in everyone's heart, and and he saw everyone in that sense, and he saw there is a soul situated in everyone's heart, and he was serving in that spirit. And that's the vision of a Mahabhagavat. What is that verse in Bhagavad Gita? Sachi, do you remember that verse? I'm trying to remember. How does it start? That Vigna Vina, no, not that one. That a learned person sees everyone with an equal vision. He sees that there is, the dog, he see everyone, the dog eater, the Brahmana. He sees that the super soul is situated.
You were right, Prabhu. Vidya Vinaya Sampanna.
Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Tuni Cheva Sapakecha Pandita Samadarshina.
Yeah, Pandita.
Thank you, Krishnamani Mataji. So Yudhishthir Maharaj had that kind of evolved vision. He could clearly see without any ambiguity that these are the Vaishnavas who have been entrusted directly by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is more so evident because the Lord himself was there at the time. So there should not be any doubt about it. So in that spirit, Yudhishthir Maharaj was serving and looking after the people. We should always pray to be in such a kingdom. And it is a matter of a consciousness, the way we see the kingdom, that's how we should see Radha Gokulananda, the Bhakti Vedanta manner, or wherever your local temple is, or your deities in the home should be seen in that spirit, that I am living in the kingdom of Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Nataraj, Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, Shri Shri Radha Gokulanand, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. And that's the spirit we need to be able to live with. And then we know our king is the lordships. We are here, and then the lordships are taking care of us. So if we develop that mood, then we will always feel we are in Ram Rajya, or we will in Yudhishthir Rajya, or we are in Parikshit Rajya, or we are in Raja Dashrath Rajya. That's the kind of feeling we will immediately get if we are somehow able to raise ourselves to that consciousness, And of course, I'm talking about these principles. I'm still, not there yet, and I'm trying to practice myself. So with so many faults and shortcomings, but ultimately I also want to evolve to that vision that I see my family, my children, my wife in the same spirit, that these are the Vaishnavas who are interested by my spiritual master, by my dear Lord Krishna, and I need to look after them. That's the spirit I need to have. Okay, so let's move on so that we can cover the next verse. Krishnavani Mataji, since you recited that verse, I'll read this verse and you can read the purport for me. Sampada kravato loka mahishi brahatro mahi jambudvipahi patyam cha yasasaschatri divam gatam. Translation. News even reached the celestial planets about Maharaj Yudhishthir's worldly possessions, the sacrifices by which he would attain a better destination, his queen, his stalwart brothers, his extensive land, and his sovereignty over the planet Earth, his fame, etc. Purport, Mataji.
Purport by Sri Prabhupada. Only a rich and great man's name and fame are known all over the world, and the name and fame of Maharaj Yudhishthir reached the higher planets because of his good administration. Worldly possessions, glorious wife Draupadi, the strength of his brothers Bhima and Arjun, and his solid sovereign power over the world known as Jambudvip. Here the word loka is significant. There are different lokas or higher planets scattered all over the sky, both material and spiritual. A person can reach them by dint of his work in the present life, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:25. No forceful entrance is allowed there. The tiny material scientists and engineers who are discovered vehicles to travel over a few thousand miles in outer space will not be allowed entrance. That is not the way to reach the better planets. One must qualify himself to enter into such happy planets by sacrifice and service. Those who are sinful in every step of life can expect only to be degraded into animal life, to suffer more and more the pangs of material existence. And this is also stated in Bhagavad Gita 16, chapter 16, verse 19. Maharaj Yudhishthir's good sacrifices and qualifications were so lofty and virtuous that even the residents of the higher celestial planets were already prepared to receive him as one of them. Hare Krishna.
Hi, thank you so much, Mataji. So here we see in this particular text, the glorification of Yudhishthir Maharaj very quickly spread across the various planets, including the planets of heavens. And, everybody was singing about his glories and his fames actually. And here the particular planets mentioned is that the land and the lordships over how Jambudvip reached the higher planets, how Yudhishthir Maharaj was ruling his kingdom was very, very exemplary. And the Devatas are always looking for great examples. So, and if there was, like we hear how when Yudhishthir Maharaj conducted the Rajasuya sacrifice, how all the Devi Devatas, so many personalities like Narad Muni were present there. And so many other Devi Devtas, they showered their blessings on Yudhishthir Maharaj. So you see, there is not much a difference when a king like Yudhishthir Maharaj is ruling a planet versus in itself is a planet of other Devi Devtas who are actually residing there. We hear from Chaitanya Charitamrita that how so many other uh, personalities, they appear when the Lord appears. We know how Murari Gupta came, who was none other than Hanuman, right? Who wanted to see Lord Ram in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We see how Lord Brahma appeared as Haridas Thakur. So all these personality, they actually descend. So when Yudhishthir Maharaj was ruling the kingdom, who was Mahabhagavad, the pure devotee of the Lord, certainly the Lord was, and if the Lord was there, then for sure there will be other Devi Devatas who will be in that kingdom. So we may think, of course there are other planets mentioned here, but there is not much difference between those planets and the kingdom where the Yudhishthir Maharaj is actually. So the traveling of the news may be very astonishing to us to comprehend. Okay, what a distance. We learn from Bhagavatam that how so many yojanas and so many different layers of the ether and the sky, and then the planets. But this is the beauty of the transcendental vibration. How Srila Prabhupada gives this example when he was asking his disciples to go open the temples, and the disciples were worried, and Prabhupada would constantly write letters to them to encourage them. He would in the night answer the letters, or he will dictate the letters, and Hari Sorry Prabhu, or what is the name of the devotee who wrote Leelamrit, Prabhupada disciple? I'm forgetting his name.
Satsarup Goswami.
Satsarup Goswami Maharaj, they would translate, and they would write day in, day out. Prabhupada would write just to encourage them. And in one letter, Prabhupada writes that please do not be worried, do not feel separation from me. We are always connected. I am chanting here, you're chanting there. And through this transcendental vibration, we are always connected. So similarly, through the vibration of these transcendental activities of Yudhishthir Maharaj, he was able to establish the connection with these higher planets very, very easily. Why? Because even the Devi Devatas are constantly looking for an opportunity to descend to earth and take birth in such a kingdom where pure devotional service of the Lord is so prominent. That's the reason they're always looking out like this, okay, where is the pure devotional service happening? Where are the devotees at Bhaktivedanta Manor? What are they doing today? Who are they worshipping? What festival are they celebrating? Okay, I wish I could come down and be take part in these activities. Actually, that's how the Devi Devtas are always thinking. And we know this from Chaitanya Charitamrita, from Bhagavatam, because of the Mahaprabhu's appearance only 500 years ago. We hear so many times that those who go to heavenly planets, because of so much of enjoyment, it's so difficult to practice devotional service. So they are seeking the opportunity to come to earth so they can then carry on and just finish your business in 100 years. Now, these days, if you can do 70, 80, you're lucky. But finish your business and go back early. That's what they want. They don't want to be stuck for thousands of years. Those whose eyes, have opened, or there who are excited to come down actually. So that's just to give you a bit of a background. What Prabhupada is trying to explain, that how his qualifications were widespread actually. Let's go to the next verse. Kim te kama surasparaha mukunda manaso dvija adhijarur mudem rajna kushtatasya yathe tare. Translation. O Brahmanas, the opulence of the king was so enchanting that the denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service. So I'm glad some of it I've already covered in the previous purport I just spoke when Mataji read. But anybody would like to read this first paragraph?
Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Bhagavati Mataji. Hare Krishna, please do.
Hare Krishna. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. There are two things in the world which can satisfy living beings. When one is materially engrossed, he is satisfied only by sense gratification. But when one is liberated from the conditions of the material modes, he is satisfied only by rendering loving service for the satisfaction of the Lord. This means that the living being is constitutionally a servitor and not one who is served. Being illusioned by the conditions of the external energy, one falsely thinks himself to be the served, but actually he is not served. He is servant of the senses like lust, desire, anger, avarice, pride, madness, and intolerance. When one is in his proper senses by attainment of spiritual knowledge, he realizes that he is not the master of the material world, but is only a servant of the senses. At that time, he begs for the service of the Lord and thus becomes happy without being illusioned by so called material happiness. Maharaj Yudhishthir was one of the liberated souls, and therefore, for him, there was no pleasure in a vast kingdom, good wife, obedient brothers, happy subjects, and prosperous world. These blessings automatically follow for a pure devotee, even though the devotee does not aspire for them. The example set here is exactly suitable. It is said that one who is hungry is never satisfied by anything other than food. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to read the second paragraph?
Right, Krishna, sorry.
Yes, Palika Mataji, you can read the half. And who was the next one? Who else?
It was
Krishangi.
me.
Okay, Krishangi Mataji. So let's do half. Palika Mataji, you can finish till here, gratification, sense gratification. And after that, Krishangi Mataji can read the remaining.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Whole material world is full of hungry living beings. The hunger is not for food, shelter, or sense gratification. The hunger is the spiritual atmosphere. Due to ignorance, only they think that the world is dissatisfied because there is not sufficient food, shelter, defense, and objects of sense gratification. This is called illusion. When the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented
Presented.
presented by material hunger. Is that where I finish?
No, carry on. Carry on.
But the foolish leaders cannot see that even the people who are most sumptuously materially satisfied are still hungry. And what is their hunger and poverty? This hunger is actually for spiritual food, spiritual shelter, spiritual defense, and spiritual sense gratification.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay. These can be obtained in the association of the Supreme Spirit, Lord Shri Krishna, and therefore one who has them cannot be attracted by the so-called food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification of the material world, even if they are relished by the denizens of the heavenly planets. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 8.16, it is said by the Lord that even in the topmost planet of the universe, namely the Brahma Lok, where the duration of life is multiplied by millions of years by earth calculation, one cannot satisfy his hunger. Such hunger can be satisfied only when the living being is situated in immortality, which is attained in the spiritual sky, far, far above the Brahma Lok. In the association of Lord Mukund, the Lord who awards his devotees the transcendental pleasure of liberation. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. So you see a clear distinction between someone who's trying to serve the Lord versus someone who wants to enjoy the material energy. Yudhishthira Maharaj was such an exemplar that his whole life was dedicated to completely satisfying the senses of the Lord and all the way and the devotees of the Lord actually. And I like the line, Prabhu, the example set herein is exactly suitable. It is said that when one who's hungry is never satisfied by anything other than the food. So you see, the world, Prabhupada's very famous statement is there, the world is in want for Krishna consciousness. That's what the world is looking for. But unfortunately, right now, due to the misguided leaders, the civilization at the moment has unfortunately turned around in the other way around. So although people are looking for spiritual emancipation or spiritual enlightenment, they are somehow or other so much dragged by the material energy that it's very, very difficult for them to rise to the platform where they can in light see that what is real good for me. And one may start to think that, oh wow, well, people are really enjoying. But well, Prabhupada makes the point in the previous purports, and here he's saying that, seemingly we may think, those who have a lot of money are happy, but actually not. Only few people, because of their past karma and past activity, may be happy at the same time of having a money, but that happiness is like a water in a hoof, which is just enough for the hoof print of a cow, or a calf, very, very small amount of happiness, which is also flickering. It's just going to slip away like this. So it's very important that we understand that this human form of life is is very precious, and we have to try and make the best use of this bad bargain, because it is not a best body, because I mean, in the sense it is a material body, but it's still conducive enough to exercise our willpower, our intelligence, and engage in Krishna's service. And trust me, we will not lose anything. Why? Because look what Prabhupada is telling us here. Prabhupada is saying when the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented by material hunger, as I was explaining earlier. But the foolish leaders cannot see that even if the people who are not most sumptuously materially satisfied are still hungry. And what is that hunger and poverty? This hunger is actually for spiritual food, prasadam, spiritual shelter, spiritual master, or the Vaishnavas. Spiritual defense. What is a spiritual defense? Can somebody give me some of the ways how devotees create that spiritual defense?
Cleaning, book distribution.
Yeah, cleaning by staying pure, by preaching Krishna consciousness, by staying in the association of the devotee. Our association of the devotees is our biggest spiritual defense. If we think we do no longer need the devotees, or if we think I'm the most smart person in the sangha room and I can outsmart everybody, then unfortunately we are in the wrong room. As long as we are in the mood that I need help, if that's our mood that I need help or I live to be corrected, my spiritual master signs his book, Our Family Business, right at the end, or I think at the beginning, after writing, he says that, begs forgiveness and mentions of any discrepancies, and invites feedback from the people, and he very nicely writes that I live to be corrected. So similarly, that spiritual defense, the association of the devotees, that attitude that I need help and I live to be corrected is what's going to take us onto the other end. Not that I know it all, not that I know, you know, I, I'm the best. No, it's not about all of that. And what is spiritual sense gratification? Dancing in the morning program, dancing in the festival, going out in the Harinam, feasting on the prasadam, glorifying Lord Ram on the Ram Navami, and meeting with the devotees, embracing the devotees, having spiritual fun with the devotees. Trust me, there is no better sense gratification than a spiritual sense gratification. Because the moment you go to a nightclub or you go and drink alcohol or whatever one may does, not you all are wonderful Vaishnavas, you've overcome all those perplexities or those allurements. Unfortunately, some of these still attract my mind. I'm so fallen. I'm talking about myself, but what I'm saying here is that sense of being attracted by these things versus going to the temple and taking part in the programs and hearing the Harikatha is the biggest sense gratification one can have. And that sense of gratification is such that it leaves such an impression on your heart that you would never want to actually taste anything else. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Param Drishtava Nivartante, that this higher taste is what will get us, automatically lose the taste for the old things. So when we go to Krishna, we actually think we are losing, but we are the biggest gainer in the game. We are the biggest, we are getting the jackpot, we are getting the Euro Million lottery is actually nothing in front of the jackpot which we receive when we take the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna. That's what we get. And these can be obtained in the association of the Supreme Spirit, Lord Shri Krishna. And therefore, one who has then cannot be attracted by the so-called food, shelter, defense, and sense, even if they are relished by the denizens of heavenly planets. Therefore, it is said by the Lord that even in the topmost planet of the universe, namely the Brahma Loka, where the duration of life is multiplied by millions of years by earth calculation, one cannot satisfy his hunger. Such hunger can be satisfied only when the living being is situated in immortality, which is attained in spiritual sky far, far above the Brahma Loka, in the association of Lord Mukunda, the Lord who awards his devotees the transcendental pleasure of liberation. Om Tat Sat. Thank you so much, everyone. Just a few minutes for any reflections or any comments or any questions anybody has.
Prabhu, I thank you for a wonderful class. Very nice to have your association again.
Thank you, Prabhu.
What you just mentioned and talked about, Prabhupada said in the purport, this was very much exemplified by the wonderful departure of His Holiness Kadan Kanan Swami Maharaj. In his last message, he said that you are, the billionaire is a pauper, but you, the devotees, have got the real wealth. Now, you just imagine, you don't have to go to Harrods or Selfridges to find devotion, where it is found in Prabhupada's books in the holy name, and there is no monetary value, but it has spiritual value. Now, where can you find spiritual value in Harrods or Selfridges? So here we are with the greatest asset, So where should we do anything else? It's Prabhupada who is taking us all back home, back to Godhead. You can't go back with a spacecraft.
Yes, Prabhu, very nicely put, actually, and very relevant point you made about the life of Kadambakana Maharaj and what he said, actually, Yeah, absolutely. We are the real billionaires, we've got it. And Maharaj said, it's only a matter of time and I'll see you on the other side. You could just see those words were so profound. And those are the words, when a devotee leaves, you just know it, that he's going to serve the lordships eternally in the direction of his divine spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada, and that's what Maharaj is doing right now. And he's assured us that stick to the path, keep to the holy name. This point we hear from Rupa Goswami, who gives this example. Please remember, keep it in your heart, write it down on a piece of paper, that he says one thing we have to do in order to somehow or other get that perfection is somehow or other stay alive. But the principle is stay alive. How? Stay alive in Krishna consciousness. Even if we drop in our sadhana, then somehow or other drag yourself to the association of devotees, or invite the Vaishnavas to your home, feed them some prasadam, ask them, Prabhu, which Bhagavatam canto are you reading these days? Okay, what is it that inspires you about that particular story of Bharat Maharaj? What section of that Bhagavatam do you relish more? And tell me what is happening, what kind of, and Prabhu, I've been lately finding it difficult to do any hearing. Can you share any suggestions, any tips? That's what is called tadati pratikranati guhyam akhyati prachati. That these sweet exchanges, the 6 exchanges, are very, very fundamental to our Krishna consciousness. And if we keep to those exchanges and simply stay alive in Krishna consciousness, just as a obedient son has to stay alive to inherit the kingdom of his father, we have to stay alive to inherit the kingdom of our param father, supreme personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. That's what we have to do. Somehow or other, we have to push ourselves in the association of devotees. Somehow or other, we have to knock on the doors of the devotees and give them some prasadam, that Prabhu, Mataji, I've not seen you for a while. Is everything okay with you? Drop that message. And like my Guruma, Mother Nirakula, she shared this example that in her early stages of Krishna, it's very profound. We will end on that. She said there was a time she was going through a very difficult, rough patch in her life, and then she stopped coming to the temple and she just was doing her own thing until one day one devotee showed up on her doorstep and bought a plate of Mahaprasadam. And just as the Mahaprasadam plate arrived, she was in tears after seeing that beautiful plate of prasadam, honoring the prasadam. The very next day, she was in the temple. And from that day, she never looked back, actually. So you see, these little gestures can do wonders in our spiritual life. And not just for us, even for those who we are reaching out, definitely we will be benefited. So very appropriate example. Thank you for sharing, Chandra Chaitanya Prabhu, and for dedicating your life to the mission of Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Divya Prabhu. Wonderful class, and you're a very good preacher. And I pray and bless that you keep doing that. It's really, you just brought life today in our session. It was really
Thank you,
nice.
Vasu. Thank you so
One
much.
just thing I remember of Srila Prabhupada, like he said, when the lecture is there, we should not ask just any questions. Srila Prabhupada, I remember when he was giving class, and somebody asked some questions which was not related to the lesson. So Srila Prabhupada, very clearly said that we should not be, because it disturbs the mood of that particular class. So we should ask only related to that verse or whatever the person is speaking. So I thought I just remember of Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you. That's really sweet. Thank you, Balika Mataji. Nice. Thank you, Bhagavati Mataji, for your encouraging words. Namrata Mataji, Hare Krishna. Nice to have you online. Thank you, Indulekha Mataji, for joining us, and all the other Vaishnavas. One last comment or any question from anybody?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. You're doing very nice class. You're doing a great job. Please keep doing it. And let's take us to yatra so that we can walk our sins.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm not able to come so often on the chat at the moment. Not just yatras, because right now by Krishna's mercy, I now have my own travel agency. So I do flight tickets and, do retreats. But right now I'm also doing my job because it's not sustainable. But the idea is over the next couple of years, I could transit and leave my job and just do this and my service of, reading Prabhupada books and distributing those as my main thing. Then I think, yeah, and this transition is quite tough, trying to pick this up. But I guess we all go through those challenges. But so yeah, there's a lot of balls to juggle, but it's not possible without the help of Vaishnavas, and especially my wife, who's been a great support for me, working behind the scenes and doing a lot of the things to support me, and many other devotees actually in this service. So yeah, I'm very grateful to you all. Yeah, if you at all need any services of traveling, booking flights, feel free to contact me. And if you like the quotation, then yeah, absolutely. So thank you for bringing that, Mataji. And yeah, thank you, devotees. It's 8:46 now. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us, and keep this vibration of Srila Prabhupada books going, because that's what is going to take us onto the other side, along with the holy name. Hare Krishna, Vanchakalpatarubhasya, Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavnebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Hare Krishna.
We'll pray for your transition from
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare
Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Mataji. Nice to see you. Hare
Thank you, Hare Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jyoti Mataji. Hare Bol, Shubha Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Shailesh Prabhu. Thank you for the wonderful Charan. Hare Krishna, Rupa Mataji. Good to see you after a while. Hare Bol.